mesh like this big, huge, long connected bar, it's made out of one continuous surface, right? For the most part, except for, I don't know, maybe there's something weird in the corner here, but floating polys in the corner, I guess. I don't know. Little bit of messy mesh. Right? I could tell because when I selected the whole thing, I'm like, what the fuck is that? So, yeah, there might be, maybe some weird mesh going on in here. So I don't know why you've got some broken mesh there, but you might want to investigate that. The other thing is, let's turn on our display, right? Now, like I said, automatic can get you there pretty quick, but it will break it into 1,000 shards, right? So if we go into UV, automatic, sometimes it can be an okay starting point. Now, what you can do, so again, we've got all these broken shards. I would say these faces are probably going to be kept together. If I take a look, there we go. So I'm going to expand the selection. By the way, your keyboard shortcuts, if they're set to English, Canadian, or French, you want to set them to US, because otherwise they will disable your shortcuts in Maya. So I'm going to expand the selection out to basically that border area within this little inset. Go to UV, and I'm going to just kind of use the move tool to isolate this, move it over. Maybe I'll have to create shell as well, create UV shell, just to break these off from other pieces. And what you can do is go in and select around. So that face, may be connected to a bunch of other stuff. So you can do move and sew. So you get this sort of connected box effect. And you can keep expanding that if you want. Now you want to be careful because you do need to avoid overlapping seams. Right? This frame is actually connected as a continuous shell. So you may have to break these two pieces off. And so you'd say break shell, go to edge, and grab those outermost edges and say move and sew. So that's one way you can keep things less splintered, more connected as a single piece. Now, since this thing is kind of modular in a way, in theory, what you could do is just focus on this section of the bar. All right, so I deselect this. So you'd focus on unwrapping, all of this stuff here, and then just copy it, recopy it back out. So the UVs are done once, and you're not redoing them. So I can sort of show you an idea behind that. So let's say we take this face. I'm going to just expand the selection out until I get roughly an equal portion of what I think is mostly this sort of bar section here. Let's hit 5. So very carefully, and I'll avoid the top because I could probably treat the top as a simple single piece of mesh. Okay, so let's just deselect a bunch of this other stuff here. So again, I want to get a clean sort of repetition. So I'm going to start with both ends, but I'm probably going to wind up deleting the one end. So you can take this singular piece. Again, let me just try to make sure I really isolate this down into just that front face and focus on that. Okay, so you can actually duplicate or extract this. I'm going to duplicate this as a separate tool. So again, that way I get to focus on it. I'll just select off. Let's see if I can grab the individual object. There we go. And I'll just center my pivot quickly. Modify, center pivot. Then we're going to isolate it down. So again, I think I've got the right face, and it's going to duplicate over. So as I said, I'm going to kind of figure out where does this thing connect. So what you can do is actually go in and edit your pivot. So I'm going to go to object mode, hit D to enter edit pivot, hold V to snap to vertex, and maybe I'll snap to, this corner here. And then I'll go to edits, duplicate special. I'll just hit apply, and then, so I've got a duplicate sitting on top of this. Hold V, and this will snap this thing over to about here. Now I can see you actually didn't have a perfectly clean repetition of that piece. So that may require you to tweak the model a bit. But, by the way, let me undo the duplicate special. I'll explain why. So when I go back into edit duplicate special, I want to make sure that I have an instance. So what we can do is actually go into duplicate special, go to the options, and make sure you set instance up. Hit apply and close. hold V and snap that point over to there, right? So depending on your scaling or how you want it to be set up, you know, if I take these faces now, I'm going to hold, hit Q so you can just go to selection and just select those kind of interior faces. And now you can actually try to eyeball them into position so they repeat pretty cleanly, okay? And it looks like that face is a bit off as well, so we may just want to center that a bit. Now, if you want to get real specific and real technical, you can grab the vertices. Yeah, what do we have here? Oh, looks like you have another extrusion there, right? Yeah, I might just temporarily delete that for now. I'll explain why in a second. So I'll just delete that. So on the reference point here, I'm going to say, okay. Oops. Not sure why that's not showing up on the reference, but. So go to vertex, hold V, right, and then you can really snap. Oops, let's go to vertex. There. Hold V, and then you can snap to the other object, basically. Okay, and then I'll just go to edge, fill hole, and then you can just extrude that back out, right? Okay, so that should be, you know, pretty clean, pretty repetitive, right? Okay, so we go to UV editor. Just going to grab this object, go into automatic, and then you can do some stitching, right? So I would take this face, expand the selection. I'll just slide this stuff over. So you want to find the front face, right? Grab your exterior edges. Go to move and sew. May jump over somewhere. Let's take a look here. It's that front face, move and sew. So this thing is sort of connected to something else. Looks like the side piece here. So you may just want to go to create planar map. Sometimes the planar map, it's kind of facing on the wrong axis. So you have to go to create planar and go to options and pick a different axis. So maybe the Z axis. It's not quite correct. X, which should come in from the side. So you get a nice sort of side view. So a lot of times I'll break things down by sort of this planar effect. And if we just hit 6 on our keyboard, we can see a little better how everything's laid out. And then I'll just do a quick unfold as I go. So again, I'll take a piece like this, expand it out, and just try to find where its connected sort of parts are. So I'm going to have to actually do a create shell on this just to separate it off. And just like I did before, I'd break these two pieces, create shell, and then if I go to edge, move and sew, and then grab just single clicking to make sure I get a very precise selection, right? So you have less seams to deal with, right? More kind of monolithic parts. And sometimes you can kind of keep edges together. So maybe you've got a nice wood pattern that you want to kind of connect down into this region. You could say, well, you know what, maybe I want to connect this together. So I'm going to first actually go to create shell to make sure it's a separated, isolated piece, and then find the edges that sort of belong together, do move and sew, not to that edge, but I'll do it to this edge, move and sew. And then where are they connected here? Here, here, back here. Okay, move and sew. All right, so that's going to be a solid mesh piece. Again, if we just do a quick unfold. All right. So you can keep a lot of faces together. Now let's just jump back into object mode for a second. I'm going to hit Control 1. So I'm going to isolate these two again. So remember, I've got the overlap, and I have to keep in mind, what am I keeping? And what am I deleting? So I definitely don't need, oops, doing the wrong face here. So I'm going to just get back out of isolation for a second. Oops. So remember, I'm going to actually be repeating this end of the mesh, right? So I also find the centering of this is a little bit weird, so I'm going to just touch that up a bit. But what I can do is delete those polys that will be present in the copy. So I can sort of delete that. I'm guessing I'm probably going to delete this as well, because that'll be on this side here, right? Looks like there's another piece of mesh hanging out here that I can delete. Not really sure what that is. That's very strange. Ooh, bad. Yeah, I'll try to just go to face. It's weird how that face disappears. That can be a sign too of a bad mesh error, so I'm going to be very careful about that. So what I can try to do with that, if you can't delete the polygon associated with that, you can also try to do a target weld on this thing. It should just kind of neatly tuck it away and kind of delete that weird poly issue that was popping up. Okay, so if I grab hopefully my duplicate or my kind of clone piece here, I'm just going to hide this. And then I'll isolate these two. All right, so this is how you can sort of see how your tiles match up, right? So again, if I take this piece, I'm not sure why my selections are getting really slow. So I'm going to just delete history on this. So if I take this thing, hit Control D, remember hold V, and try to snap to the same point. So hold V, snap to the same point. You see that repetition seems like it's going pretty well for the most part, right? Okay, so once you go through and basically fix up all your UV edits, let's go into Shell, grab all the pieces, and do a layout. You know, this is something else that sometimes comes up. If you're aiming to make your mesh ultra light and efficient, there's no plan to sculpt it or smooth it. Sometimes I'll look for, there's sort of these edges down the middle here that may be unnecessary, right? So if you find, you have edges like this that kind of go nowhere and do nothing, you can take them out. I don't think they're defining anything additional in the mesh, so we can clean that up. So again, if we want to make sure this is a continuous part here, or maybe just these two front faces, I think right now they're just shells. Yeah, so we can go to Edge and sort of tidy up that way, right? So you might find edges that should be or could be continuous. So maybe going through here, these pieces could or should be maybe a solid shell. Let's just, pull that over. Edge. Find your common edge wherever that may be and try to do move and sew. Now in this case there's going to be overlap actually, so I think, let me just see if let's just try to move and sew. There's going to be an overlap in here, so I'm going to just avoid that. So this is, it's got less pieces, it's a little more compact, and then you can duplicate it, weld it together, and then relay it out. So I'll show you what that looks like in a second. So let's say we just take the example of the two pieces that are here. Okay, so this thing is welded. Let's see. Where do I want to synchronize this thing? Okay, so I'm going to hit D. I'm going to just shift where my pivot point is because I realize I'm snapping kind of to the wrong location. So I'm going to shift where that point is. And I'll just move this off for a second. There, so there's the pivot point there. By the way, if you ever see this happen, sometimes your mesh will lose its material. Okay, now I can hold V to snap to that point. There we go. So you see you get this nice clean repetition, right? By the way, I'm noticing some other issue. I'm not sure if this was something maybe I did or there's some duplicate faces there. So you got to be really, really careful about the way you build your mesh as well. We want to try to avoid any kind of sloppy overlapping mesh. So I might, wow. This scene is getting very touchy. So I'm going to see if I can just move this mesh up and figure out what that is. I think I should be able to delete it safely, but we'll see what happens. Okay, so that's gone. If we move this vertex over, so you can just nudge that like so. Now remember, I think there's a top side to this, right? There's some other mesh sitting on top, like the bar top. So I could probably, in theory, delete this mesh and this, because they'll be hidden. It's wasting UV space, so I can basically delete that. So as I said, the other thing is you might want to make sure that maybe this vertex, these vertices are probably connected together, so we don't have a strange gap in here. So for that, I might just go into Target Weld under the Modeling Toolkit, like so. And if you just want to make sure your UVs are okay, you can grab all the shells and do another layout. Again, it seems to be acting a little slow for me today, so I'm going to just avoid that for now. So let's go back. Let's Control D. And then hold V and snap to the next piece, right? And I believe if you Shift D, right, you can duplicate that way. And again, if the edges are cleanly overlapping, so that means there's no mesh. So let's just see here. Are there mesh? There's no mesh there. That means that I could, in theory, weld this stuff together. So again, that also means that I want to take a vertice like this. If I can find it, vertice, sorry. All right, so I'd want this vertex. Let's go to the Move tool. I'll select that vertex. I want it to be in this location. So if I hold V, you can snap it over to that side. So that will allow it to kind of weld together cleanly. So that's how you can actually get modular mesh to work. So in here, I'd actually need to add an edge right across here for it to be able to connect. Okay, so maybe I'll just take the cut tool and say, you know what, I'm going to kind of put an edge in there. And let's go and hold V to snap together. Now I'm going to just move the object. Just want to move it out of the way again so I can see what's going on. Okay, that's good. So there is going to be kind of clean mesh to connect to that. Now again, if you want to tweak your UV, go back, unfold it, lay it out again so it's clean. Because I think I may have caused a little bit of distortion there, but right in this area possibly. But what's great, these were all instanced, right? So if you want to start combining them, you have to actually convert the instances just to individual objects. You have to break the instancing, basically. To do that, you go to Modify, Convert, Instance to Object. So it converts them to individual objects. Again, my Maya is being a little bit weirdly slow, so I'm going to be careful about it. Okay, let's select these guys. I'm just going to make sure that they're, showing as convert to individual objects. And just to make sure I get that one copy back, I'm going to reduplicate just by hitting Control D. And then snapping it hopefully to the right spot. Oh, I think this one has the old pivot, so I'm going to just hit D, hold V. Snap this back up here. That is a bit tricky. D. Yeah, that's close. Let's just get it right there. Okay. Hit D, hold V. Oops, sorry. Let me turn off the pivot adjustment. There. Hold V. Snap it back. So now in theory, what you should be able to do, right, is go back, combine this stuff. So when you're building modularly, or if you already kind of merge this stuff together, instead of re-unwrapping all of it by hand and doing that same section over and over and over again, you can actually just separate out the repeating section once. If you take a look, it's all here. If I go to shell, I can do a layout. It'll take a second, but all those pieces will lay out, and then I can weld across that open seam. So I'd actually just select through the borders. I'll show you that in a second. It's just going to take another 5 or 10 seconds here to lay out. Let me just close my other scenes while we wait. There's the compacted layout with all the duplicates. All right. And again, we've got border edges. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll shift, double click on all the border edges. So that way I'm going to eventually convert that selection. Okay, so that's going through the borders. So there's where the borders meet. If you control right click and say I want to convert that selection to vertices, then if you shift right click and say merge vertices, as long as the threshold is just high enough, you don't want to go too high where it collapses a bunch of edges, but it should be high enough so that now you've got a continuous surface. They're actually truly and totally connected. And you've got all the UVs to go with that. Right? So they're all in there. They're all laid out. And in fact, you know, you could even duplicate that and rotate it the other way to get the other side of the bar, right? So then you can maybe strip apart all that mesh that is in the original. So let me just go to display, show all. All right, so I'd go into the original bar. Let's isolate that. You know, delete everything but the bar top, basically, and swap those new parts in, right? And then you can kind of cut it to size, position it, reposition it. So you can actually be a little bit smarter about that. And so sometimes I find I have to do that. You know, I don't always unwrap as I go, and you forget, and sometimes you have to kind of re-engineer it back that way. You know, sometimes it's sort of 6 of one, half dozen of another. Maybe it's just as long to unwrap it by hand. Like I said, for this assignment, honestly, just going into auto unwrap is going to probably get you most of the way there, but it's going to give you a ton of little shards. So if you do ever plan to, you know, try to unwrap this and paint it in ZBrush or most likely like Substance Painter or something, then yeah, you might want to go with the more connected pieces. You know, something else you can do is break apart these bigger shells once you've done an automatic and do another layout. Again, layout's being very, very slow today, so but you will get a better packing if you break up that huge bar top, right?